Kia ora, everyone, and welcome. I'm Leonie Ray. I'm the Chief Executive here at the Council. And so I'm going to open with a karakia, which we always do at our council meetings. Tui ki runga, tui ki raro, tui ki roto, tui ki waho. Tua tatua ti tangata, ki ti kapapa o ti hui nei, ki ti kaupapa o ti rangi nei, mori ora ki a tato katoa. So welcome to our candidate evening. Terrible night to be coming out. And we do have Nicola online, so welcome, Nicola.
Thank you.
I'm just going to just do a bit of an opening before I'm going to hand over to Dale Ofskowski, who is a electoral officer and is experienced in local government elections. He's going to take us through a presentation shortly. But firstly, just want to welcome you and putting your interest forward for a role on council, whether that's mayor or councillor or a board member. Obviously, we've got our couple of boards as well. And people who come to council, who join council, are generally very compassionate about their communities, but also probably compassionate about local government as well, and some of the challenges that we face ongoing. And people bring their skills from different walks of life. So we need a real mix of skills around the table, and that makes for a really good democracy. So we hold elections, they matter, and the why they matter is that we need democratic decision making. We need people who represent different communities of interest, and we've got quite a few in our region, and as you know, it's a very vast region. We do rubbish collection and recycling. I'll just go through a few: bylaws, future planning, infrastructure and roading, public transport, libraries, parks, reserves, the three waters, alcohol licensing, environmental management, development planning, policy, setting rates. It is massive what we do. You may well obviously know that we're a unitary council, which means we do the functions of a district council. We call it a TA or territorial authority, but we also do the functions of the regional councils. And you probably recognise some, like Wellington Regional Council and Canterbury Council, Southland Regional Council. And they do distinct things. They do more regional planning. Used to be all catchment boards. Now they do a lot of that under the regional councils. It's rivers management, flood management, pest control, public transport, and the list goes on. So it's a very, very vast array of things that we do. And we're not a business because we don't make profit, and we do things for public good. And private business don't always do that for public good. We have around 420 staff here, and when you think about what we have to deliver, we've got to run call centres. We've got people kayaking up rivers, taking water samples. We've got people out there spraying weeds to protect our biosecurity. We've got regulatory people, animal control. We look after libraries and service centres. We do community events. We just do so much. And when people say, "Oh, you should have less people," well, we've got one of those and half of one of those, and if you go and chop 20 out, suddenly you've got no one to do some of the work. So we do run a really lean ship here, because we're conscious of trying to give value to our ratepayers. Why stand? That's for you to answer. Why do you want to stand? I think maybe tonight some of the information you get might help you. Qualifications, you need no qualifications. We just need life skills, common sense, and an ability to work as a team. You don't always agree, but you come out of the room and hopefully we get to some good decision making. That's a really big learning curve. And I think Stuart is here tonight, and he can talk to you about his experience as a long-term serving elected member. The amount of reading. You'll read and you'll read and you'll read all sorts of information that you've probably never ever thought you'd ever have to look at. Making this really big, important decisions, particularly when you get into the planning space, for our future. It's intergenerational. Some really big decisions come through council. So you need to get across a lot of topics. And I've also got Jo in the background. You would agree, it's a massive learning curve. But once you get towards the end of the 3 years, you finally work out what you're trying to be doing. And I'm just being really fair, no matter how clever and smart you are. So a lot of reading, a lot of decisions, lots of voting. So sometimes you'll vote against something, but it gets passed, and that's kind of part of being in a democracy. You'll also have a lot of involvement in the community. So you'll be very public, and you'll be going to events, and people will know who you are, and you will represent council. So in some ways you kind of have to leave a bit of your life behind in some respects, and understanding that. So this is what this is about tonight, what that might mean for you. If you're really good at finances, that's really helpful because it's complex. And we make big decisions, millions and millions of dollars, in some of our decision making. And it's going to be really challenging because you're trying to do the right thing, but you can't necessarily always afford to do the right thing. So that's what makes the job really tough. And I take my hat off to anyone who stands hard enough being a CEO, let alone being an elected member. And we have to work together, the council and the organisation. We're in this together, and we're here to help you deliver on what you want to deliver. We also have, you need to understand things like standing orders. Sounds very dull, but it's really important that we have protocols in council, and you will sign off on those as elected members. You'll adopt the previous one, and then you can make changes and adopt a new one. Right, what will I get paid? The Remuneration Authority determines what you get paid, and this is reviewed annually. And I think we've got some information out there around what actual roles get paid. You get paid slightly more if you're a chair on a committee, or a deputy mayor gets paid more than a regular sitting councillor. And there's quite a lot of work to spread out. People who sit on subcommittees like animal control subcommittees, etc. Risk and audit committees. There's a lot of different committees that people sit on. I intend to try and slim them down a bit this election so that we won't have quite so many. We're trying to make it a bit easier for people. So who's in charge of the election? Well, I'm the Chief Executive. I have the duty to foster participation. So my role is to do the pre-election report, which will be coming out shortly. I'm there to promote the elections, getting people out to vote, and also getting people to put their hand up. So that's my role. The actual officer is responsible for managing the election, and with assistance from our deputy electoral officer, who is Elaine, who's online, and officials. We've got a team. It's a big job running elections, and I think you'll probably appreciate it as you go through the process. So from here, I'm going to hand over to Dale for his presentation. And look, to any questions, we're open for questions, and there's refreshments somewhere. I'm not quite sure where. There's some water there, but I think we've got the councillors' lounges, and you can have a cup of tea afterwards, and Stuart might be able to have a bit of a chat to you about his experience as an elected member. So Dale, over to you.
Right. Can I say? Righto, Tato. My name's Dale Ofsowski. I'm from Election Services, and I'm the electoral officer for Tasman District Council. I'm also the electoral officer for a number of other councils throughout New Zealand. We are based in Auckland, for my sins, and one of our councils is a very large Auckland council. I have a little bit of experience. I've been running elections now for 40 years, and every triennial election, something different comes up. It's really an interesting job. This time round, the difference, of course, is the Māori ward poll. So that's new, that hasn't been around before. As Leonie said, happy to take questions as we go through the presentation. And pretty much without further ado, I'll get on to my presentation. Here we go. So agenda today, basically, how do I become a candidate? What do I need to know about campaigning? How does the voting work? As well as some background information about the council. So some key terms before we start. TDC, Tasman District Council, obviously, an elector, a person who is eligible to vote and who is enrolled. Electoral roll is a list of electors who are either on the Māori or the general roll. The Maori electoral roll is a list of electors who are enrolled on the Maori roll, and a general electoral roll is a list of electors who are enrolled on the general roll. So on to some key dates. Nominations open on the 4th of July. That's next Friday. So it's not far away now. So it's come up really quickly. But next Friday, nominations will be able to open. And they will then close on the 1st of August at 12 noon. This next period really is voting opens. So that will open on the 9th of September and close on the 11th of October, again at 12 noon. So this is a little earlier than in past elections. We had legislative change last year that changed the timetable slightly, and it was really all around New Zealand Post capability under postal voting to actually get posts out and back into the councils for postal voting. So there was an extended time. So the voting period has moved from 3 weeks to 4.5 weeks for your actual voting period. So as candidates, you'll need to know that it'll take longer for votes to go out and get delivered, and therefore longer to come back in so that we can count them. So we'll have results on the afternoon of Saturday, the 11th of October, and then we'll have the preliminary results out, and I'll tell you more a little about what the difference is shortly. The next day on Sunday, the 12th of October, and the final result, that's once everything's done and dusted, all the special votes are in, that'll be on the 17th of October. So some general information, population of around 60,000 here, of which around 43,000 are voting electors or eligible to vote. 41,500 are on the general roll, and about 1,500 are on the Māori roll. The candidates will be listed on the voting documents in pseudo-random order, so councils have a choice under legislation. They can choose either alphabetical, pseudo-random, or purely random. And this council has chosen pseudo-random. So basically what that means is that at the close of nominations, all names go into a hat, if you like, and they're drawn out by JP, and that's the order that all electors get on their voting documents. So it is randomised, but it is set for everyone. We'll also have a Māori ward poll with this election. As I said, that's going to be new, or the first time for, I think there's about 43 councils across the land that have to have the Māori ward poll. So we've got elections for the mayor, of course, and 14 councillors, 13 for the general ward councillors, and they're listed up there. And then we have the Māori ward, which is district-wide, and there's one councillor there from the Māori ward. So in addition, we will have 8 community board members from the 2 community boards in the district. So as I mentioned, there will be a poll on Māori wards. There will be 2 options. There will be a simple question. I vote to keep the Māori ward, or I vote to remove the Māori ward. So this is the standardised question right across the country. I'm part of a National Electoral Officers group, and we wanted to make the question as simple and as easily understood as we could to everyone. So that's the wording, and everyone's going to have that wording. So it's going to be a simple tick to keep or remove your Māori ward. The poll will be binding. So the outcome of the poll will apply for the 2028 and 2031 elections. So because the outcome is binding, the issue cannot be revisited or addressed again until 2032. So if the decision is to keep or to retain the Māori wards, that can't be revisited until 2032. And similarly, if the vote is to remove them, that can't be revisited until 2032. However, regardless of the outcome of the poll, the Māori ward will be in place for this coming triennial, 2025 to 2028. The poll will be open to all electors. I do get this question asked when I go around the traps. Is it everyone that can vote, or is it only Māori that can vote? It is all electors that will be able to vote. There's just some maps. You'll be very familiar with maps. These are general wards, our Māori ward, which is district-wide, and our 2 community boards there. Electoral system. So Tasman is using first past the post, retaining first past the post. Vote by ticking candidate names. Very simple, easy to understand. Candidates with the highest number of votes wins. So the big no-no is don't vote for more candidates than there are positions. So if there are 2 positions and you vote for 3, the paper is invalid. So you can vote for less. So if there's 2 vacancies, you can vote for 1 or 2, but you can't vote for 3. On to candidate eligibility. To be a candidate, you must be a New Zealand citizen. First thing, aged 18 years or over. You must be enrolled on the parliamentary roll anywhere in New Zealand. So you do not need to be enrolled on the parliamentary roll here. You can be anywhere. You can be in Christchurch, for example, and stand here. There's nothing to prevent you from doing that. But you must be nominated by 2 people from the area and the role that you are standing in. So there's an example there. If you're standing for the Richmond General Ward, your nomination must be signed by 2 people enrolled on the general roll in the Richmond General Ward area. So whatever ward or community board you're standing in, fine, you can come from anywhere. You must be a parliamentary elector anywhere, but you must be nominated by those 2 electors from the area. You can stand for multiple positions. Nothing to stop you standing for the mayor, for the council and the community board. Nothing to stop you doing that. However, if you get so lucky enough to get elected to more than one, you take the higher position. So if you're standing for mayor and council, you get elected to mayor, you take the mayoral position, and the next highest polling candidate takes the position for the council position. You can't stand for more than one ward. So I also get this question saying, oh, can I have a foot in both camps? Can I stand for this one and this one? No, you've got to choose. Which one do you want to stand in? I put in there, I don't normally advise this, but there is a small requirement under a very old Act, 1968, I think it is, where elected members or their spouses cannot have contracts with the council over 25,000 in any one financial year. Okay, so there's a process that has to go through with the audit office. If you do fit into that category, we have to work through with the audit office to gain approval. But that's something that you, as candidates, need to be mindful of if you do have contracts with the council over 25,000. If a council employee is elected, so yes, council employees can stand for office, but if they are elected to mayor or council, they must resign, and that's basically a conflict of interest. Not applicable, interestingly enough, for community board. So if a staff gets elected to a community board, they are not required to resign as they are perhaps for the council. And the last thing up there is you can't nominate yourself. So get 2 people in your area that you're standing for to nominate you and complete your nomination. Any questions so far?
Just a comment, we did actually once have a person that had a contract, and it was a little bit of a challenge.
It was.
They got approved.
Yeah. That's why I raise it here, I think, because it's a cumbersome process and candidates just need to be aware that there's a lot of extra steps in that situation. So nomination process, obtain one of these. We've got some out the back. They're comprehensive. They've got everything you need to know about wanting to stand, about the district, bylaws, science bylaws. We've got a lot of information in there about the election offences. The conduct of an election is quite prescribed. There's a lot of things you ought to have picked up already, the do's and don'ts. Have a look at the offences in the booklet. Know what you can and can't do. If you don't, other candidates will, and they may well pick you up on what you have done. So available in hard copy, you can download from the council's website. And as I said, it contains everything you need to know about being a candidate. Onto the nomination process. Now, as I said, they open next Friday the 4th. We were fortunate enough to have a legislative change last year to now enable electronic nominations. It's a real move in the right direction, we believe. So we're promoting an online nomination. There's the address up there. It's in the handbook as well. That's probably the easiest way to lodge your nomination. You register online. You can come and go with the various completion of it, and then you can submit it electronically. What it does is that you will not put your nominators in, and the system will electronically email your two nominators. But before it does that, it will check against the electoral roll to make sure your nominators are actually eligible. So it's a good step right at the beginning to say, oops, no, one of your nominators is not eligible. You'll have to find someone else. So that's a really good tool. You'll also be able to attach your candidate profile statement, your photograph, proof of citizenship, evidence of your payment, all electronically, and then just submit it. So that's really easy. However, if you want a paper one, there are paper ones available for you to collect from the council offices, and you can drop it off in person. A lot of people will still want to do that. They still won't be satisfied until it's actually lodged with an electoral official at the council and it's been checked, and then they can go away satisfied that everything's in order. There's also a on the council website, or there will be from next Friday, an editable PDF of each nomination, so you'll be able to go online, fill that out electronically, but you cannot submit that one. You have to print that out and then bring it in paper. So there are actually 3 ways to complete your nomination paper. So there's the nomination online nomination portal. There's no printing, handwriting, scanning, etc. And you enter your statement electronically. The benefit of that is that over the years, we've had great difficulty actually reading people's handwriting. We get all sorts, all caps, all lowers, all mixtures. And actually interpreting what someone is saying has been a big thing as well. We would do our best to actually interpret this. If it's submitted electronically, I've got to caution everyone, what you submit goes out to the electors, okay? So if you submit something, warts and all, or spelling mistakes or anything like that, that's what the electors see. We're not school, we don't correct everything, and that's what the electors need to know, is that this is what you've submitted. We don't doctor anything.
There is a word limit on this.
Correct, yep.
And they prove up.
There's a 150 word limit in English. You can have another 150 words in Te Reo, but those 2 lots of 150 words must be largely consistent. Okay, so we know that when you translate from English into Te Reo, 150 words in English will go to more than 150 words in Te Reo, but it has to be largely consistent, but it will block off at 150 words. So our system will actually stop at 150 words. You can have other languages as well. If you wanted to have other languages, you can have, an example might be 50 in English, 50 in Mandarin, and 50 in Hindi or something like that. You can do that. That's no problem at all, as long as it doesn't exceed 150 words. So you can upload your photo and instantly confirm your nominators are eligible, as I mentioned earlier. By law, as I said, it's quite a prescribed process, these elections and the nomination process. Each position you stand for has a nomination deposit of $200, which includes GST, and that's for each position you're standing for. So if you're standing for a council and a community board, that's 2 positions, that's $400 you need to front up with. Most candidates do get that nomination deposit refunded. If you poll greater than 25% of the lowest successful candidate, and you submit your return of election expenses form, you get your nomination deposit back. So it's a legal thing. People say, why are we bothering with $200? It's really just, I think, to stop those frivolous nominations, which is why I think it was put into legislation. You can submit a recent passport size colour photograph that goes into the candidate guide that goes out with the voting documents. I do stress recent. within the last 12 months. We have had instances of photographs submitted of 10 years ago, and that sort of thing. So we do look at that quite closely, because what we're trying to do is give a true indication to the electors of the candidates. Evidence of New Zealand citizenship, that is not a legal requirement. Interestingly enough, we do ask for it. We have been caught out where we had a candidate stand who thought that she was a New Zealand citizen, came to New Zealand when she was 2, just assumed she was, stood, this is before we asked for the evidence, stood, got elected, and it was quite a large ward, and then that was challenged. Someone obviously knew her background, and when push came to shove, she could not produce her citizenship. She was then declared invalid. And then we had a very costly by-election for that one, because it's quite a large ward. So that's why we now ask for just evidence of this, just a copy of your passport or something like that. Candidates can declare an affiliation. An affiliation is who do you represent? It can be a group or an organisation. It might be a Ratepayer Association or Federated Farmers or anything like that. And that's fine, but if you do have an affiliation, we do require evidence of that. So you just can't say, I belong to this political party, for example, without any proof of that, because otherwise we'll get into trouble for using an affiliation that the candidate may or may not be eligible to use. A lot of candidates simply use the word independent there alongside their name. That's really giving an impression, if you like, or an indication that actually I don't belong to any political parties. I am truly independent, and we'll put that on. And a lot of candidates also just leave it blank. So we're not affiliated to anyone. We don't want to use the independent. We'll just have it blank. So it's entirely over to the candidate what you want to do. There are some unacceptable affiliations that I will not accept as the electoral officer. We don't accept a slogan, vote for me. We don't accept, for obvious reasons, anything that is indecent or slanderous under the Defamation Act. So there are some criteria there that we enforce around their affiliations. So you're required on your nomination paper to include a statement on your principal place of residence. So where you're standing, it says I reside within or without the area outside. So that is a requirement. It goes alongside your name on your candidate guide, and that just gives a little bit more information to the electors of saying, well, this person, I always use the analogy of Tim Shadbolt from Invercargill. I know he's past it now, but you know, he could stand here in Tasman, for example, but on his candidate statement, he is outside of the area that he's standing in. That's not counted in your 150 words. And you also, you must list any other positions you're standing for. And that's really to help electors that this person, this candidate is actually standing for the mayor, for this ward and this community board, and they will then decide what they want to vote for. So it is a legal requirement. It is on the nomination paper, so it's just something to look out for. So nominations, they close on 12 noon on the 1st of August. I put there, and I really mean it, they will close sharp at 12 noon on the 1st of August. Don't come in at 1 minute to 12 and there's a problem with it and you've got to go away and get it fixed. And believe you me, I've seen it. I've seen people running in at 2 minutes to 12 and we've had to reject their nomination because one of the nominators was ineligible. They've gone running out, they've shoulder tapped people on the street and all that sort of thing. And then they come back at 1 minute past 12 and I'm sorry, nominations have closed. So what we do is bring it in early, lodge your nomination early. If there's any issues with it, you've got time to fix it. But if you come in at 5 to 12 for strategic reasons or whatever, and there is a problem because it may be invalidated. So this is just an example of what it could look like. Candidate is standing for mayor. They have supplied an affiliation, which is voluntary, of course. their principal place of residence is in the area that they're standing for, they have supplied a photograph, and they have supplied a statement. So that's what it will look like if they complete everything correctly. This is what it'll look like if they don't. And you can see the difference. So the candidate is standing for the mayor. They have not supplied an affiliation, which is voluntary. Their principal place of residence is not in the area. They have not supplied a photograph, and they have not supplied a statement. So when you look at those two, what are the electors going to think of? They're going to look at, all electors like to see what you look like. It's human nature, I think. So that one is going to be far more attractive to the electors than that one. So voter eligibility, if you're on the general electoral roll, you can vote for 4 issues. You can vote for the mayor, you can vote for 1 to 4 general ward councillors, and you can vote for 4 community board members, and you vote for the Māori ward poll. So that's if you're on the general roll, you can vote for those issues. If you're on the Māori electoral roll, you can also vote for 4 issues. The mayor, the Māori ward councillor, the 4 community board members, and the Māori ward poll. On to campaigning. I get this question asked quite frequently. When does campaigning start? And I say campaigning can start anytime. You can do it from now. In fact, some jurisdictions, they started at Christmas time for their campaigning. So it can start anytime. However, there is a policy on election signs. If you're going to put up election signs, they cannot go up until 9 weeks before election day. So that's from the 9th of August, and they must be removed by midnight the day before on the 10th of October. So, as I said, you can be campaigning now, you can do your leaflets, you can do public notices, you can do whatever you like. Social media is great. I'll talk about that shortly, but you can do all that now, but actual election signs, not until the 9 weeks before polling day. The other thing to bear in mind is, I hope everyone understands, don't peak too soon in your campaigning. So if you're campaigning, don't peak and put all your effort in too soon. Nominations haven't even opened yet, and voting hasn't even started yet. Voting won't start or go out until the 9th of September. So you want to time your campaign around voting period when people start getting their voting packs, so that they will recognise you when they open their packs. You may have door knocked, you may have put a flyer in, you may have done something like that, and they will recognise you, and therefore there's recognition there. Policy of the signs on the council's website. If signs in other areas probably doesn't affect you guys here, must be familiar with their signs policy. Any election advertisement. So whatever you do, whether it's a sign, a notice, a pamphlet, web pages on vehicles, whatever you do, must have an authorisation statement on it. Authorised by Joe Bloggs, 123 Smith Street, or a phone number, or a email address, or whatever contact details you need. Don't put probably your residential address. That used to be the criteria. You had to put your residential address. The law changed with that, so that you can now put other mechanisms like a phone number or an email address or a website or something like that. If you are looking at a mobile number, you might want to think twice about putting your own personal mobile number on there, because it's going to be open for everyone to see. You don't want to get your phone calls on your personal mobile number at midnight, for example. A lot of candidates actually purchase or lease a mobile phone just for the purposes of the election, so just to keep yourself safe. If you are putting something on social media, it must appear at least on your homepage, the statement, but is not required on every post or tweet or message that you put out. So just bear that in mind. It must appear at least once on your social media. That leads me into social media. Great way to campaign. It really is. If you can, it's instant, it's far-reaching, and all important, it's free. So use social media. You can promote yourself. You can promote your policies. By all sorts of mannerisms. You can do that to keep your name to the front. Fake news is a growing thing. We don't accept that. We do monitor that, so we want to steer away from fake news. Council's media channels. This is really important. They are off limits and they are monitored. The council itself must be politically neutral in an election and in a poll. Okay, so we're doing a Māori wards poll. Council itself must be neutral on this, does not have a view. However, individuals within the council, individual elected members, individual candidates may and will have a view on that. So that's quite acceptable, but council itself cannot. It must be neutral. Cybersecurity, age-old thing, keep safe. It really is a big bad world out there in social land, and just be aware, be mindful of things. Computers can be hacked, so it's really an awareness, I think, out there. And as I said earlier, election offences, they're all in here. Read them. Be aware of what you can and can't do, because other candidates will know what you can and can't do. And I will soon get a phone call or an email saying, I call it the tittle tattle season, where candidates say, so-and-so has broken the law. What are you going to do about it? I do investigate all of those instances. If in fact it is a law has been broken, I have no choice but to forward it on to the police. I must by law. Then it's either over to the police as to what they want to do. Most of the time they actually do investigate. They may not do anything, but they actually do investigate it. Donations. You can receive donations from any sources to spend on your campaign, but they all must be recorded and declared after the election on your expenses donations return. How much and who it came from must be recorded. You are able to receive anonymous donations, and this must be truly anonymous for the candidate. Anonymous might be $100 slipped under your front mat, for example, and you don't know who it is. It's purely anonymous. But if someone slips you $100 at a function or something like that, and you know who it is, that is not anonymous, and you must declare that. Anonymous donations can't be over $1,500. If it is over $1,500, I get it. I don't. I mean, I do get it, but I have to pass it on to the council to offset the cost of the election. But it is forfeited actually over $1,500. So there's no limit on the donations, but there is a limit on how much you can spend on your campaign. Here we go there. So how much you can spend on your campaign depends on what position you're standing for and the population of that area. So it's worked through the legislation, and as you can see there, there's the population of 59,800. So the limit is $30,000 for a mayoral candidate. And you can see the limits go from, for the wards, between 3,500 to 14,000, depending on the ward and the size of that ward. And then your community boards between $7,000 and $14,000. So you must stick within those limits. Most candidates don't go anywhere near the limit, maybe possibly the mayoral one. My advice is be transparent. If in doubt, put it on your return, because most candidates don't go near the limit. But what you don't want is a challenge at the end with the police involved saying you overspent or whatever. This was not accounted for. If you are given any materials or something to help you, you might have a brother-in-law that's a printer, and they might offer, that person may offer to do all your printing of your posters or flyers, and it's free, but it's not free. The law says that it's got to be a reasonable market value. So it's got to go on your return as a reasonable market value. Even though you haven't paid for it, it still must be accounted on your return. So those limits include GST. We've had a case a couple of elections ago where a candidate went right to the wire and then added GST on. It's got to be inclusive of GST. That actually became an offence under the Act, and the police got involved. All sorts of drama happened around that way. So it does include GST. You can't add your limits together. So if you're standing for Mayor and Golden Bay Ward, it's not 37,000 that you can spend. You take the highest of the two. So if you're standing for the Mayor and Golden Bay, it'll be a maximum of 30,000. I've mentioned the electoral expenses and donation return. That is a mandatory return. It's attached to your nomination paper. It must be completed. If you haven't spent anything, and some candidates don't spend anything, they use social media, for example, then it must be returned, and you can have a nil value on it if you haven't spent anything. That is required by law by the 11th of December. We do enforce that, so we keep a running tally of who's submitted them. And if you haven't submitted it, we have to, by law, or we don't have any choice, but advise the police about that. That return is available for public inspection for 7 years. So it's a long time. It goes on council's website. It can be available for 7 years, available to anyone in the world to view those. So I put there as my last point there, make sure it's accurate. Don't fudge anything or anything like that. Make sure it's true and correct. It is actually a statutory declaration and it is viewable for 7 years. On to voting. Voting period 9th of September to 12 noon, 11th of October. I gave you the reasons why it was extended from the New Zealand or the Postal Service side of things. So voting packs will be delivered to electors from the 9th to the 22nd of September. That's about 14 days, I think. It used to be 6 days to get the voting packs out. And basically New Zealand Post or postal providers could not deliver in that period of time. So there was an extension. So you're able to campaign up to and including election day. A lot of people say to me, oh, do I need to, because signs, for example, have to come down the day before election day. Can I still campaign on the morning of election day? And I said, yes, you can. Nothing to prevent you doing that. So people are still voting. They're voting at home. They might be dropping their vote off at a vote box, or they might be casting a special vote. They're still voting. So yes, you are able to still campaign on election day morning. Special votes, they're available at certain locations. Check where they are in our handbook or on the website. We're having the vote boxes more and more in the community where people go in malls or four squares or whatever. And that's libraries. It's really because post boxes have been fast disappearing. They are still there, but they have been fast disappearing. So we're trying to take the vote boxes where people go so that they can drop them off by hand. If someone is posting it back, we're suggesting the Tuesday, the 7th, I think, is October, as the last day to post it back, for it to get in the system to get back to me in time. So we are predicting more hand-delivered. Certainly in 2019, it was noticeable, and 2022, far more noticeable, the number of hand-delivered votes. Some councils, it was a third of their votes were delivered in those last couple of days, simply because Postal Service suddenly remembered there may have been advertising by candidates about the vote, voting closes, get your vote in, what council does in the promotional space, all that sort of thing is really important. Then all of a sudden they look at there and they sit on the coffee table and they run in at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning to drop it in. So it is noticeable. We are expecting more and more to be hand delivered, particularly on that last morning. So during the voting period, we'll have a voting return schedule available on the council's website. That's the number of votes that have come in, not how people have voted, because we don't know that, but the number of actual voting documents that have been returned by ward that will be available. So for candidates, they'll be able to see, well, Golden Bay Ward, halfway through the voting period, this is the number that have come back in. Therefore, do I want to ratchet up my campaign or not? Candidates, please don't collect votes from electors. I know candidates may think they're doing community service and all that sort of thing, but it is actually illegal to go and have someone else's voting document in your possession. So please don't do that. If you do, I'll soon know about it, and then we have to deal with it. So voters can post back their votes or hand deliver to a council location. And as I said, with the nominations, voting will close at 12 noon on Saturday, the 11th of October, sharp. So if it's not in my hands or an electoral official's hands by 12 noon, it cannot be counted. Again, I've had people running in, car broke down, ran out of petrol. Some other family issue came up and it's 12:15. Well, why can't you accept it? And I said, the voting's closed. I've had people shoving it under the door, even though the door's shut and locked. Why? And then the thumping on the door. Why? My vote's here. Why can't you accept it? I said, voting's closed. You've had, well, in 2025, you've had 4.5 weeks to get your vote in. You shouldn't leave it to the last minute. The results, we're nearly there. Progress results on election day, that's about 90% of the votes cast. So voting will close at midday. We'll have early afternoon, we'll have what we call a progress results. So that's pretty much all votes in except those hand delivered on that Saturday morning and special votes. So it's about 90%. Sorry?
In the end transit as well.
Yes, that's right. Yes. And then what I say there is if it's a close call, don't go out and party on the Saturday night because things change, votes change. If you've only got 90% of the votes in when we're releasing progress results, it is only 90%. And if you're on the cliff edge, they're likely to change. All right. So we will then release the preliminary results on Sunday, the next day, and that will include all those votes, the hand delivered on the Saturday morning, but will exclude the special votes. And there are more and more special votes that are coming through now. They must be checked with the Electoral Commission. So those declarations that go with the special vote go down to the Electoral Commission and they actually check that person is eligible to vote. And if they are, we'll then open their special vote and count it. So all results on council website and the final results are expected by Friday the 17th of October. That's with 100% of the votes in and counted and declared. And that's the result that can be challenged by candidates. And that's when we'll know the final results of the election and, of course, of the poll. For those elected, they take office the day after the public notice. So we'll be making that public notice on the Friday the 17th. We're no longer required to put public notices in newspapers. That's gone as well. So whenever it appears on the council website, and we're aiming for the 17th as the final results and the declaration, then elected members take office the next day on the Saturday the 18th. But of course, you can't act after you've been sworn in at the first meeting. Do we have a date for your first meeting or inaugural meeting yet?
Yes, but I haven't got it with me. Sorry. Have you got it?
End of October or something, most councils are?
Usually.
Yeah. So
It takes a while.
So don't plan to go away on holiday after the election and you're elected. There's a lot of work to do after you're elected. So just some resources, handbook there, legislation, most of it, relevant legislation is in here, but it is very prescribed. There's the legislation and there's your regulations. So it's very prescribed that we have to follow. If you're really wanting to know more about it, attend a council meeting, read the agendas, the minutes, that's all available online. Talk to a council staff member or a retiring member, what it's all about. But you're quite right about reading. It really is those three things that are really important. And that's me there. I'm the electoral officer, and as I said, for my sins, I'm based in Auckland, and my deputy is Elaine, based here at the council. Kia ora.
The supplementary electoral roll.
Yep.
When does that close?
The electoral roll closes on the 1st of. Yes, so the electoral roll closes on the 1st of August, and that's what we post out from. That's the information that we get from the Electoral Commission, and that's.
Oh, thank you.
Next question, so that they can hear online.
My question was the supplementary electoral roll and when that closes.
So we will, as I said, we will get the list of electors from the Electoral Commission as at the 1st of August, and that's what we use to post out. We will get a further listing, what we're calling it, well, the Electoral Commission don't like calling it a supplementary listing. We will get that from any changes that have occurred from the 1st of August till the 10th of October of any changes, and that's to help us with special votes. Is that what the role that you're talking about?
Yes, it is. And the question is around people who own holiday homes.
Yes, ratepayer roll.
My understanding is that each dwelling, they get to vote in their main place of residence in town, but in their holiday home, they get one vote per dwelling. Is that true?
That is correct, but it's not, you don't get a whole lot of votes the same. So if you reside here, you get your whole lot of votes, your mayor, and that sort of thing. If you have a holiday home and go and over the hill, you can only get the community board vote. You don't get the whole, you don't get 2 mayoral votes, you don't get 2 council.
So a ward, it's not a committee, a ward can award someone standing for a ward council receive votes from holiday homeowners.
No. So
that's
so where you live, you get all your votes, right? Including your poll, where you live. Okay. You have a holiday home over the hill, you don't get another set of votes. That means you'll have 2 mayoral votes, which the law doesn't allow. But you can have a community board vote for your Takaka. Yeah, if there is one. Yeah.
oh well, that's clear.
So it's still 1 vote. So 1 mayoral vote, 1 ward vote, but you could have more than 1 community board vote.
What if the person lived out of the district? They would just get their ward vote, wouldn't they?
Absolutely. So you live in Christchurch and you have a place here. So you vote for all your issues in Christchurch where you live. You apply to get onto the ratepayer roll, and you can have your whole contingent of votes here. So you can vote for the mayor and for your ward and for your community board if you've got one here as a non-resident ratepayer.
But not both.
No.
No.
Bugger.
Any other questions?
That's very good.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I should have said this will be available on the our YouTube channel because it's been recorded, so the presentation will be available. So we'll put that out. Oh, the actual soft copy? There's no reason why we couldn't. Yep. We'll have to work out how we get it to you though.
Nicola, do you have a question online?
Yeah, I do. Sorry, can you hear me okay?
Good as gold.
Perfect. Thank you. So thank you for your talk so far. This is kind of general. This is over all the talk so far. I was wondering, first question, can any TDC staff or ward councillors at this point nominate a candidate?
Yes, they can, as long as they comply with being an elector in the district, in the area that the person is standing for. I would caution if a staff member was to nominate because of a potential conflict of interest, and would generally steer away from that. But legally, there's nothing to prevent that happening.
Okay, thank you. That was good. Next question was just in some of the bigger wards, is there any data historically who, and I don't know because I haven't had a look at your statistics, but is there any information about how many people come out in each different kind of area and vote? I mean, thinking campaigning, is there anything around that you have?
If you look in the candidate handbook, there's the daily return schedule, which is the here it is, page 44 of the handbook, which goes down to wards. That's the closest that we can get.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just thinking some of those wards are quite big, and if you're trying to, I mean, like you say, social media is great, but if you're wanting to get out and about and meet people.
But we don't go any lower. We don't go any lower than the wards. Yeah.
But generally, the turnout's usually around the 50% mark. I think it doesn't tally it up.
48.89.
Yeah. Yeah, so about half the people that are eligible to vote.
Okay, thank you. And sorry, last question, and this is very general, and this is probably Stu's probably going to cover this one. I was just wondering what the requirement was as far as time spent if you are a ward councillor, and if there is a particular requirement as far as, you know, days a week, hours a week.
I'm going to hand you over to Stuart because I'm actually not in all the meetings that he is in. So he's probably got a better idea than I do.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, that's a good question, Nicola, and I think Joe will attest to this. In the first term, it's generally lesser as a councillor. If you were the mayor, it's quite a bit more. I'd say generally, and Joe, I'm just looking to you for a bit of guidance, maybe 1 to 2 days a week in this term. Yeah, so 20 to 50. As you get more experience and on committees, for me, it's some weeks 4, 5 days a week. 20, 30 plus hours. Because I'm a farmer, I tend to do a lot of my work in the evening or in the early morning. But the time taken preparing for meetings and attending meetings, quite a lot of reading, some big agendas, multiple. I think on full council the other day was 400 pages. But a lot of that, particularly as you get more familiar with it, you don't need to read every word detail for it, particularly as you get more experience. But certainly in the early in your term, you really want to read it and get a bit of an understanding about it best you can. Yes, it can be good night time reading, put you to sleep. The other thing that's quite important, and Leonie referred to it early on, is understanding the standing orders about how meetings run. And we don't have a lot of emphasis on standing orders, but generally they're there as a backup, like just to make sure the meetings run smoothly. Some councils are very much into standing orders and points of order and all of that sort of thing, and time limits on speakers. But our mayor's been very generous around standing orders, and people are very much stick within the guidelines by and large.
And I can add to that if you want, just about the standing orders. It's really important that we get movers and seconders and things are recorded accurately. Otherwise, some decisions we may have to go back to council because it didn't actually pass the test of a proper resolution. So so that's when we would bring standing orders in. That's why they're important. Yeah.
And I think the other thing is, and not so much for the Richmond ward, because there is no community councils or community associations, but the rural wards, particularly Waimea, Mootry and Lakes Murchison, have a number of community councils where it's been an expectation that the local councillor will attend those meetings. It is much easier now that we have Zoom that you're on tonight. You can do that for attending council meetings as well. So there's less travel than there once was. When I was first on council, particularly when it changed from 2 councillors in the Lakes Murchison ward to 1, I was doing well over 1,000 kilometres of travel a month for meetings and attending community council meetings. And the other thing I think Leonie and Dale alluded, once you are a councillor, everywhere you go, you're a councillor. People know you, see you, want to talk about issues. It doesn't matter if it's Sunday at church or weekdays at the supermarket or anywhere you go, people want to talk to you about council stuff. Quite often, because they see you and they know you're a councillor, they'll ask you about stuff. That's just part of the role, really. So.
And I'll just add to the time involved, because we didn't talk about workshops. So we do a lot of workshops. So, for example, the recent annual plan, it may seem like quite a quick pass through council for the resolutions, but actually there was 12 workshops for that. And most of them were about between 2 and 3 hours. So that's been over probably since that's been happening all this year. So, and those are huge amounts of technical information working through, well, as you'll probably know, rubbish tins, doggy do bags, etc. But councils are making decisions almost line by line, what's in and out, because trying to keep the rates down. You go through, so it is actually a huge time suck. Those workshops. We're trying to hopefully not have to go through that process next annual plan, but yeah, they're also a requirement. If you want to be well informed, you do have to kind of attend Not all of them, but most of them. Yeah.
A little bit of a cycle in it. We're preparing the annual plan and getting that signed off, and the same with the long-term plan. As you come into your first year, you'll be working towards the long-term plan in the second year. And alongside that, there's a whole lot of workshops around policy, environmental stuff. We have all of that because we're a unitary council, so it's a really wide gambit from housing to regional council issues, joint peace management, joint landfill business unit. The list just goes on and on.
Be fair, it's not a part-time role.
Fine. And sorry, last question regarding that. Is most workshops around the Nelson Tasman area, or is there a requirement to be going somewhere else? Like,
Now, most of them are held here in the chamber, sometimes for LTP discussions, just for a bit of change of scenery or to look at stuff. We do go to other venues. There's couple of times we've had building construction going on here at the council offices, and we've gone to the likes of the Moochie Hill Centre or the Motueka Library. And we did used to do a tour thing where the standing committees would do meeting in the outlying areas. They've been to Murchison and Tapawera for a meeting just to spread it around a bit. But by and large, 90% of the meetings are held here in the council chamber.
thank you.
Well, I'll just close off with a karakia to finish the formal part of this. Of course, we're going through for refreshments if you want to stay and chat more to Stuart. And I don't know whether Jo's staying, but she's been a first-time councillor. She met the learning curve, so she might be able to sort of talk about her experiences. So thank you, Dale. And also there's toilets out here too if you need them. I didn't tell you that earlier. I missed the whole housekeeping section because I don't normally chair these. It's normally the mayor. And it's pretty onto it. Just closing a karakia. Kia hiko ti kororo ki wātia ki mama ti manawa o ti tangata. Kia uki ti ara mo tātou I no ora nei. Ko rongo ki runga ki tina. Hui e tākie. Right, so that's the formal part of the session. Nicola, of course, you can't come for a cup of tea.